Going to have a look at the French papers now. Oliver Farry is here on set with me. Awful lot being said in the French papers, of course, about the various arrests connected with the attacks here in Paris and in Brussels as well.
That's right. The arrests show once again the close links between the suspects in both attacks and also the scale of the network that mounted them. The right-leaning daily Le Figaro says that the pieces of the jigsaw are falling into place. It also notes that the scale of the actions planned for Brussels have still not been determined. Some investigators think that it's plausible that attacks similar to the ones in Paris last November might have been planned with two teams, one of suicide bombers like in the Stade de France, the other carrying out armed attacks in public. That may have been averted simply because Salah Abdeslam was being interrogated, so they decided their hand was forced and they probably rushed out to do an attack maybe a little bit sooner than expected. There's similarity in operational methods and also similarity in the profiles of the attackers and their history, which is probably what prompted France's Minister for Cities, Patrick Kammer, to declare yesterday that there are 100 neighbourhoods in France that have the potential to be another Molenbeek, referring to the area of Brussels where several suspected jihadists are believed to have originated. The minister elaborates today in an interview with the Paris daily Le Parisien. What is Molenbeek, he asks? A huge concentration of poverty, unemployment, organised criminal system with an underground economy where public services have more or less disappeared and where elected representatives have given up the ghost. He goes on to say that not everyone in those neighbourhoods should be tarred with the same brush, but we mustn't look the other way either. There's a clear willingness on the part of Salafists to take control of some of these areas.
Quite drastic declarations from a government minister, aren't they, really? I mean, how have they actually gone down then, Oliver?
Well, not very well with some left-wing and centrist politicians. Le Figaro says that some mayors have voiced their disapproval, calling the minister's comments very violent, and they're angry that their own municipalities are being presented as such. Yves Jégo, mayor of Montereau in the Paris suburbs, criticised, quote, thundering comments that were stigmatising, not to say disturbing. And he added that the vast majority of those people who live in Molenbeek or in French suburbs are citizens like any other who respect the laws and values of Europe.
I've also found a piece in Le Figaro. Now, this is denouncing France's lack of support for Christians in the Middle East.
Yes, the paper says France has restricted the number of visas granted to families belonging to Iraqi religious minorities such as Christians and Yazidis. There's been a drop of visas from 300 to 82 over the past 12 months, according to figures that are doing the rounds among French NGOs. Now, the drop is linked to the situation in France, the migrant crisis, and also, for some reason, terrorism. France is in a dilemma, says Le Figaro. We have to open the doors in the name of primary assistance to people in danger, but the exodus to Europe would probably be definitive and would finish what the Islamic State group has started, which is chasing the Assyrian Chaldean minority from the Nineveh plains. Now, while Iraqi Christians are arriving in France in smaller numbers, Syrian refugees continue to flee the country, particularly to Jordan, where officials of the UN High Commission for Refugees registers them using iris recognition, together with very specific information about their life. Now, the news website Rue 89 reports that the refugees agree to the registration because it saves them money and lets them benefit from UN aid. The site says that the technology is becoming a management tool that is supposedly safe and efficient for UN agencies and for major NGOs.
And finally from you, Oliver, a couple of sad deaths this weekend in France that have made the news, haven't they?
Yes, well, first of all, there's the historian and member of the Académie Française, Alain Decaux, who died at the age of 90. Mr. Decaux was not very well known outside the French-speaking world, but was quite a big name within France. Le Monde pays tribute to his long media career, spanning 46 years of radio and 30 on television. Decaux was one of the first intellectuals to bring history to a mass media through to a mass public through the media, and for this reason he's probably one of the better known members of the Académie Française. Now, there was also an American writer who was quite dear to French hearts, Jim Garrison, a man fond of the great wide open, author of some 20 books of fiction and poetry, including Dalva and Legends of the Fall, which about 20 years ago you might remember was made into a film with Brad Pitt and Anthony Hopkins. Now, Big Jim, as he was known, died Saturday at the age of 78. Le Monde enthuses about the solitary heroes of his books, who were men and women who, quote, take to the road to flee their demons, to hunt, to fish and to camp. Now, in an interview he gave to the news magazine L'Obs in 2009, Harrison pondered the reasons for his popularity in France. He said, why did a country decide to adopt a foreign writer? Maybe it's because I write about the wild regions and that the French don't need to hear about New York because they have Paris, a city so much more interesting than New York. Now, if there are any New Yorkers listening and offended by that, they're the words of the late Jim Harrison and not me.
I'm very glad you made that clear. Not mine either. Thank you very much, Oliver Farry, with the French papers on France 24.